everybody. Welcome back to the railroad. The Union Pacific Railroad Evanston subdivision in HO scale. My name is Darrell Cruz, owner and builder of the layout, and your host for a special layout control system upgrade video. I have been spending a lot of time, weeks and weeks, in fact, months and months. It's been probably July, August, September, October. So 3 months I've been working on this, a complete revamping of the control system on the layout from Digitrax over to ESU and some other things also. So I just wanted to share with you the whole thought process about this changeover, and also how it all came about and where it stands right now. And believe it or not, I've gotten so far through it that I'm actually working on weathering, which will be coming up here not too long. Now, this is what I've been using for quite a while. This is Railroad and Company software, and it has been working pretty well. And there are some things I don't like about it. First of all, I only spent like $100 on this back in 2005, but any upgrades cost like $750. So I don't like that. But here you kind of see how it works. You click the buttons to basically set the signal, and depending on which signal you're clicking, it will throw the turnouts and set a route for you, which to me made sense. That seems like that would be the best way to do it. So here I'm doing the bottom light, so it crosses over, and it sets the correct light, and it actually redoes things on down the line. So you have the crossover there, which means a double yellow and the green. So I had it all set up to where it worked pretty well. But one thing that was one of the things that I did not like about it is it didn't look like the prototype. Here you can see this is an actual photograph of the actual Union Pacific dispatchers panels. And as you can see, it doesn't look anything like the Railroad and Company. Railroad and Company looks more like a toy control panel. One of the big differences is that the signals on the control panel on the prototype, it just shows red or green and then yellow. So it only have 3 colors, and it doesn't necessarily show all the aspects. And whether it's red over green, green over yellow, it just simply says green, yellow, or red, so that you can see that clearance has been given. So I switched over to CATS. This is JMRI based, and it was designed originally for the Crandic route of Pat Lana. I think this was written mainly by Rodney Black, and he was a lot of help when I was setting this up. But this is a lot different, and it's much more like the prototype. So on the prototype, the dispatcher throws the turnouts, and once he has a turnout set, then he sets the signals. So here I only have one turnout that I wanted, because I'm going to go straight through. So it's clear, and it'll go straight through since I have them straight there. And it's straight there. And here, since I have the turnout set for crossover, it crosses over. Now here I get an error because I have, says cannot be done, because I had the wrong turnouts done. So once I throw the turnouts correctly, then I can go ahead and set it. Now that's the procedure that's used on the prototype railroad. So dispatcher sets the turnouts, and then the computer or the system will set the aspects. And on the control panel, again, if you look, it just shows yellow, green, or red. actually white is red. It will, as the train goes through, it will actually turn it to red. But if there's no color, then it's red on the layout. So this looks a lot more like the prototype. And then it tracks trains a lot better. So I can position a train here, and you can notice it's UP 9564 now is in track 4. And as the train runs through this route, CATS does a really good job of transferring the train number with the train as it goes through. Here I'm positioning another train. This time I'm putting 8679, so it's UP 8679, and so on. And once you position the trains, then as the trains move across the layout, it will show where the trains are. Not only that it's occupied, but that what train is occupying. And if you're dispatching, that's a huge help if you're trying to figure out how things are going. So I definitely wanted something more like that. By the way, this is where the dispatcher sits, in the middle of the helix. A lot of room, though. It's not cramped at all. In fact, 2 people can sit in there. There you can see the staging yard. All right, so that's one of the things I was looking for to get things set up. Now, I also wanted something more modern. One of the big issues we had with the setup that the Digitrax is that sometimes the local net would get overwhelmed, and response times were very slow. In fact, sometimes some commands were actually missed, and a turnout that was supposed to be thrown in a control point actually was not thrown, and or only through one of the 2 turnouts. And then just the response time on, pressing F2 for the horn, the time it takes for it to show up, it just was a little laggy. Now, when I operated by myself, it wasn't an issue because it was just me, and I was the only one, doing throttle commands and so forth. So it was not the big deal. But when we had an operating session and he had 6 people running trains on the main line, plus 2 more in Evanston Yard and somebody working Westfaco and Wholesome Cement and UTLX. I mean, we could have, up to 10 locomotives go on at a time. And so when we had that much going on at once, the system would bog down a little bit. And also the detectors, the BDL-16s, I've been using them for a long time, and I'm pretty good at updating them and so forth. But it was not always 100% reliable, especially if the system was overwhelmed with lots of commands. So I switched over to ESU, and here's the complete schematic that I set up. Now, I had some of this already kind of set up. I just had to swap things out, so I didn't have to completely redo the wiring. So I have ECOS detectors instead of BDL-16s. I had to update the circuit breakers from PM4s to the PSXX ones, and I went with ESU cab control. And you see I have a booster for it. Now this schematic is on, there's the URL for this. If you want to look in the description, you can bring up this schematic and you can see. Notice also that there are 2 separate. You have the top schematic is for the track power and throttle bus. And then the bottom is a completely separate system that's just a standalone local net system. It's run by JMRI on a computer. There's no command station. The computer acts as a command station, and you have to add a 12-volt power supply, and then all the SE8Cs and the stationary decoders are all run separately, and that helps in a big amount. All right, now let's take a look at some of the new components that I was installing. One of the first things was the ECOS detectors, and these have 16 blocks that you can connect. Everything's in German, by the way, pretty much. 16 blocks, and 4 of the 16 have Railcom. If you notice, I wanted to make sure that we could have train tracking on the dispatcher's panel. So in case the system loses track of where the train is, the Railcom will bring it back up again, and we'll be able to reset it to the correct to the correct locomotive. All right, so here's the packaging. Again, the instructions are in German. I finally found this on the internet, and I just basically had it translated by the computer, so it wasn't too bad. But you can't actually, this is of no use, although the diagrams I could kind of make some sense of. The wiring of it is not that much different than the BDL16s. It's a whole lot easier than the BDL16s, but the way it's set up with the different blocks and the common rail and the detected rail and so on is pretty much the same. They give you what they call EcoSlink cable. It's it's not even a meter long, and it's got different number of pins on each side. So it's like you can't get this anywhere except with the it's got 6 pins on one side and 7 pins on the other, so you can't plug it in backwards. But it's kind of I guess a European way of doing things. Dealing with a German manufacturer instead of a USA manufacturer definitely is some differences there. Their whole approach to things is a little different. This is a big upgrade over the BDL16s as far as the wiring goes. On the BDL16s, you have to solder wires in place. Now, I did this over a big length of time because you can hear the air conditioner just came on. So these connectors that you insert the wires and screw, then you plug those into the connectors on the detector. So you can get them all wired up easily and then just plug it in. Which definitely, it's not soldering, it's just wiring. Just, put the wire in there and screw it in. But it's definitely a lot easier to take that connector and put the wires in there and tighten them up with the screws and then plug it in, rather than having this attached to the wall and then having to guess where the hole is for the wire and so on. So it definitely is a much easier way of doing it. They have some jumpers there for the different modes. I didn't have to move any of them. And they use rail B and rail O instead of A and B. I'm not sure. Digitrax always uses rail A, rail B. I'm not sure what the O and the B stands for, but it's the same idea. You want to make sure you keep them straight. So here's the plug for the 6 pin. I'm not sure what this is for, unless I think there's maybe you can plug from the command station directly into it, from the command station straight to the detector. I took the cover off just as I was curious to see what the circuitry looked like. You should not ever need to do that. I didn't have it off very long. I figure why risk things. And then the other thing that I purchased was these, what's called the terminals. So there's only there's a certain number of plugs in the command station. And then from the command station, you can plug into these terminals. And then from the terminals, you can plug into the Ecos connectors. It's definitely a different setup than the local net. Local net is a lot easier and cheaper to deal with. The EcoSlink cables can only be so long, but you can connect the so you go from the command station to the terminals, to one terminal, and then from that terminal you can go to more terminals using Ethernet cables, just a regular 8-wire Ethernet cable. So you don't have to have one of these EcoSlink cables to each Ecos detectors. So this is the cable that you use, and that's that. So you could use that cable to go straight to the detector, but that would really limit what you're doing. The best way to do it is to use these terminals, plug from the command station to the terminal, and then from the terminals you can plug some more cables. They have 6 different plugs to go from this terminal to the Ecos detectors. And then you notice they also have the Ethernet connector. So you don't connect this to the computer, but you use Ethernet cable to connect one terminal to another terminal. So from the command station you go to one terminal, and then you can go all around the layout to where you want to have more terminals and then more components. So that's the 7 plug. So the cable can only go one way. You can't mess it up. Here's the cover. So you can put it on the fascia. So here's the layout. This is by Wholesome Cement, and on the lower level, Devil Slide, and then Granger up above. And then below we have the existing setup. And I have a number of components. On the very left there is a SE8C. That does all the signals and some stationary decoders for turnouts. Here's all the terminals to all the blocks that I have throughout the layout. This is just 16 of them from one BDL16. It kind of works out nice that they both use 16 blocks. There's a BDL16 that I was replacing. You can see how you had to solder all the wires. That was definitely a much harder process. There's the SE8Cs. I'm still going to be using those. And then on the right there is the power manager. Those were mechanical relays. And it turns out that I needed to replace those as well. Those are like 20 years old, so they needed to be replaced anyway. Here's a second BDL16. Now, I'm not the neatest person on wiring, but I'm pretty organized as far as having terminal strips and kind of knowing where everything is. I tried using this Digitrax new version of the BDL16. Didn't have any luck. I got it because I was hoping that transponding would work. That was a complete failure. It had no luck with the transponding at all. But now this is what it looks like now. These are the PSXX ones. There's 3 of them. So it actually is a PSXX3. They number it kind of crazy. And then here I have the ECOS detector replacing one of the BDL16s. Here's the other ECOS replacing the other BDL16s. I just kind of wired it into the existing. Here's the terminal, one of the terminals. Now you notice I have the Ethernet. I have the 2 cables going to the 2 ECOS connectors. And then I have the Ethernet cable. One of the Ethernet cable comes from a terminal by the command station, and then the other one goes to the 3rd terminal. So I have 3 terminals, one at the command station, one here connected to the first one, and then there's a 3rd one across the layout that's connected to this one. All right, so this is all the way across the layout. I had to use a 100-foot Ethernet cable to get across to there. So here I have another terminal strip for these blocks. I was trying to figure out, I had written down the numbers for all of them. There's the BDL16 that's now replaced with the ECOS. Now I haven't replaced this. I have a PM74 power manager. I might keep it. It's been working pretty well so far, but I might replace that with a PSXX also. So here's another ECOS detector. There's the old wiring from the BDL16. And then here's the 3rd terminal. So that Ethernet cable goes, it's 100 foot long, goes all the way across the layout to the 2nd terminal, and then it plugs into the detector here. So I did not have to completely rewire everything. I just had to basically put in the terminals. Here you can see the Ethernet cable. I had to replace the terminals. Replace the BDL16s. And then the power managers as well. Here's another power manager. This one was definitely had trouble with this does the staging yard, which is a lot of locomotives, so it was having some issues with that. So that was replaced by 4 of the PSXX. The thing about the PM4s is that the relays are not fast enough. The ECOS, or the cab control system, its short detection is very quick, and it was faster than the PM4s, and it was not adjustable. Now when I did the staging yard, in order to know which tracks were which, I had to completely take all the trains out of the staging yard. So all the trains are on the layout. Here's the other side. Give me a chance to clean the tracks. I haven't ever cleaned these tracks, so I did do that. So here's the first terminal that's connected directly to the cab control station. So there you have the cab control station and the ECOS booster. And you notice the Digitrax command stations are all gone, and I have basically the cab control and the booster, which is kind of what I had before. All right, here's the ECOS detectors for the staging yards wired up. I used this cabling that came 4 wires to a cable, and then they were twisted inside the cable, which is good for not having unnecessary signaling occurring on the cabling. And so those are connected under the staging yard to all the 12 tracks. But that's pretty much how it's set up, and it has really been working very well. It was not difficult to set up, but I had a little bit of difficulty getting the rail comm working. I'm still working on that, trying to get that to work properly. But we have had a couple of layouts, operating sessions, and the first one was a complete disaster. But I learned from my mistakes and what was done improperly. It had mostly to do with how I had things programmed, and I was able to then get that done. We had a second operating session and it went just exactly how we wanted it to go, and I really am happy with the way things have gone. Some of the things I like, first of all, everything responds much more quickly. When you press the F2, it responds right away. You don't have any missed commands and so forth. I think the system responds much more quickly because the ESU cab control is 20 years newer, has a faster processor, more memory, has a network connection to the computer with an IP address and everything. You don't have to worry about getting the PUR4. You can have as many computers connect to it as you want. So that definitely is a big improvement. You have a separate power bus that has also made a big difference. That's not necessarily tied to the cab control, but having a separate power bus definitely also makes things respond much more quickly. And then another thing I like about the new setup is the ECOS detectors. Detecting the blocks is much more reliable than the BDL16s. So if there's a train there, it comes on. If there's not a train there, it goes off. It's just much more reliable. I like being able to still use my Digitrax UT6s. I have 6 of those plus a couple more Digitrax throttles. They can all still be used. There's a local net connection in the cab control, and so that's completely separate also from everything else. The CATS is definitely a big upgrade over the Railroad and Company. It looks more prototypical, functions more like the prototype, and train tracking is much more reliable. I'm still working on getting rail comm to work 100% on detection, and I think I'll get to that figured out eventually. But definitely a big improvement. It took a long time to get it all done, but it's something that's very worthwhile, and I'm glad I undertook the project, and I'm glad it's been a success. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Have a great week. I have started weathering, so you might want to, if you can, get a chance to watch out for a video coming out in a couple days on my first train weathering. Take care, everybody. Have a great week.